Yeah, so if it comes up, I'll play it. But if not, just keep singing the verses, 3 of them. Verse 1, 3, and then in the garden. And I don't even know it.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? No? Okay, I'll shout louder. They instill in us in teacher school the teacher training voice where you learn to yell loudly, but I'll try not to do that. Good morning and welcome. I think spring is finally here. I hesitate to say that summer is here, but spring is here. I hope everybody's been out to enjoy the weather. Did y'all get to see the Aurora Borealis? No, I didn't either. I fell asleep. So anyway, that's the way it goes. The announcements, most of them have been playing on the screens, so you should have been able to pay attention to the ones that are important to you for what's going on. Next Sunday, there will be a training for us going live online so that you'll be able to see the service. If you can't make it, you'll be able to see it. And there's a training to learn how to run all that fancy stuff back there, which would totally defeat me. So I'm not doing it. Besides which, I won't be here.
It's not hard. Don't intimidate them, Nancy. It's hard.
Hey, I walk in.
No one's learning to do it this morning. So.
Yeah, but see, I walk into a room and every computer in the place dies.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you can't touch it.
Now, I think you're better off if I stay in Florida. On June 9th is going to be graduation Sunday. If you have anybody that's graduating from any sort of institution of higher or lower education, let Mel know so they can put things together for that. Bible school is going to be June 10th to June 13th. And Shelley, do you have any announcements that you want to make about that?
Just if you use any kind of help that you want to get, we'll probably have a snack tree out here before she gets all over for donations for snacks.
Okay, cool. All right. The mission committee is eager to help to be involved in the Belgrade community. We work with Love Inc. We work with the Personal Care Closet, and there are other ways to do that Helen can tell you about if you want to meet with her afterwards. Linda has asked me to make one more announcement about the side table over there where the flowers and the cross are. There are little candles there. If at any point during the service you feel moved to light a candle to honor a person in your life, a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a cousin, someone who fulfilled the mother role for you at some point in your life, if you want to just light a candle in their honor, the candles will be over there for the service. Here at the church, we do not pass the offering plate. We do have a little box in the back where you come in and sign in. There's a little plastic kind of box that you can put your offering in. We appreciate that you help us in the church with your prayers, your presence, your gift, and your service, and your attendance. So as you can, that's where you would put the offering. I think I got all of that on there. I think I got it all. I think we are ready for our first hymn. So I will get out of the way. And please stand.
Maybe we stand. Come to the garden. There it is. Okay. I come to the garden to with me.
mother she tasted the sound of his voice, so sweet the birds are singing. Tea that he gave to me within his ring. And he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has the but stay in the garden. And he bids me go, the voice of God, his voice to me is called. And he walks with me and he talks with me and he tells me his heart. And the joy shares we tarry, the mother has said.
The scripture this morning is from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 1 through 7. All the tax collectors and sinners were gathered around Jesus to listen to him. The Pharisees and legal experts were grumbling, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Jesus told them this parable. Suppose someone among you had 100 sheep and lost one of them. Wouldn't he leave the other 99 in the pasture and search for the lost one until he finds it? And when he finds it, he is thrilled and places it on his shoulders. When he arrives home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, "Celebrate with me because I have found my lost sheep." In the same way, I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who changes both heart and life than over 99 righteous people who have no need to change their hearts and lives. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Kids, calm down. Back up here, maybe. Yeah, the leg was hurt. House now. We do have fun. We're gonna do something about it in a few minutes. That's right. We were gonna talk about it. Yeah, we did read my mind. Well done. It is Mother's Day. My kid has to be reminded. Fantastic. All right. So, yeah, Mother's Day. How many of you guys have done something special? Yeah, what have you done? Did the dishes. Casey, are you taking notes?
Me and my sister, and we gave butter and flour, and I gave them a small butter.
Oh, cool.
And a spoonful of flour.
Wow. Your mom's had a big weekend this weekend because graduated day yesterday or Friday? Friday, and then Mother's Day today. It's like all about you this weekend. That's awesome. Very good. Yep. What else? Wow. Shaming my kids right now. This is awesome. What are you gonna do? You were gonna draw a portrait? That'd be awesome. Of course you're gonna be. I appreciate it. Nice. Well, Mother's Day is a really important day. Our mothers take care of us and help us to grow up and help us to do all of those things. And mothers are really important. So I'm so glad to hear that you guys are all honoring moms today. Now, here's something that you may not realize. We talk a lot about God as God the Father. It says our Father. But here's an interesting thing. There are some places in scripture where God is described like mother. Oh. Yeah, you might not have known that. There are lots of places in scripture. Neither. Oh, yeah, it's kind of crazy. God is kind of, an entity that doesn't necessarily have a designation. Or gender, that's right. And so a lot of times we just call God Father because it's easy to do that, kind of because there were a lot of fatherly things that God does. But there's a lot of motherly things that God does as well. God takes care of us like a mother and loves us just like a mother as well as a father. And so I think on Mother's Day, it's important for us to honor and love and say thanks to our mom. But I think it's also appropriate for us to do the same thing for the woman as well. And so this Mother's Day, don't forget to give thanks and love and honor to God as well. Okay? Now, what we're going to do after we pray is we've got all of these flowers. And what I'd like you guys to do is take some, hang on, we'll do this in a minute, wait. We'll take some, and I want you to go and pass these out to all the ladies in the building. Sorry, guys, that's right. So, all the ladies, wait, we'll get them apple spray, and then you guys well, I'm kind of hoping some of them. Let's say all ladies that aren't around the table except me. Okay? All right. All right. Let's put together, and then you guys can get your flowers and pass them around, and then you guys will head to Sunday school. Okay? All right. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for our mothers. And all people who have helped raise us. Thanks for the way you mother us. And help us to grow. Thank you for this day.
Is everybody here one?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll give it to my mom. Oh, no, I'm gonna get one.
Don't forget about me.
Here you go.
Thank you. Thank you. See, that's so that, right? I think there's anything left over, sure. Next. All right. My next, I think so. Yeah. I don't, if I don't follow the script, yeah, it is. And, yeah. Yes. All right. So we have the time of our concerns, and so we'd love for you to hear your joys and concerns. And my mic is still not working quite yet. I thought I fixed it. So we'll just kind of not do the mics this morning. But what are your joys and concerns that you would like to share with the group this morning? Oh my goodness, hands went up really fast. All right, here we go.
A big joy for me is that Jason, my son, who spent the last 2.5 months in the hospital, is on the way.
Awesome.
So he's learning his new norm, and
That's great. For that report. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the magnificent light show.
Yeah.
Really spectacular. I watched a couple hours. Yeah, it was really exceptional.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. What our world is capable of, and the great artistry that our God is for. Yeah, hope everybody got a chance. You might have a little bit of a chance to see something, maybe not quite as spectacular as Friday night, but I think there's a little bit of a chance.
But it's unfortunately, you gotta wait for the moon to go down.
There is that. So that you can late. What else? Yeah.
sister left this morning early for Greece.
Oh,
Gone a couple weeks, so I saved her for that.
yeah, that sounds pretty nice.
Yeah. First, my mother-in-law who had surgery. And for my friend Jim, who started this.
And tomorrow. Yes, and just has been, had some melanoma and things like that removed and, just hasn't quite been able to regain his strength itself and just been having a real hard time, staying warm and so Marty is home with him this morning. So first we're just standing in one.
Praise Thanksgiving at Solar House.
Yeah.
And traveling overseas with my son. And I fly down to Florida on Wednesday to buy the house because I have to be out of this one by 2/6.
That fast, wow, it's amazing. Glad you were prepared to do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely first blessing for Nancy as they go on their way to new measures. And again, thanks for putting in that first year. And we will be celebrating Nancy. Get around to that. Yeah.
Prayers from the favorite person. All of us.
Whoa! That's amazing. Yeah. What? Yeah, what was that? Prayers for the balloon that lost all its helium?
So I asked the person from the Steve, who's that? There's hope. We can do this. Wedding week for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a mix of emotion. Had my kid become 25 and engaged to the and it blessing for our family, blessing for Seth's family, safe travels, safety on the whole front. Everything else in Americans.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be an exciting, crazy weekend and crazy week leading up to it for all. So, I got the easy part. I do, I got the easy part, so you guys. There is a script. There is a script. What's that? It's not good? Yeah. Yeah. Another gift from God right there. All of those things. What else? Yeah. Yeah.
Celebration for us is gonna be 16 this week.
Congratulations to both of you. Well, it was gonna happen whether you guys, I mean, you admit, yeah. What else? All right, if there are no other celebrations, let's spend a few moments in silent prayer. We'll pray over it and we will join back. We got together here this morning thinking of Mother's Day, thinking of the women who raised us, formed us, molded us, pushed us along. And we are thankful for all of those who participated in helping us become who we are. We also thank you for mothering us and loving us in a very special way. God, we know that your hand is on all of us, that you are right there beside us, whether we are going through celebrations or God, you already know the names and situations that have been mentioned here today. We know that you are in all of those places. Help us to show up where we can to help folks who are grieving, folks who are going through treatments, recovering from surgeries. Thankful for all those caretakers, and especially lift up Marty as she is helping stand through all of his medical difficulties and others who are making a way for people to heal. God, we lift up new beginnings, weddings, and all of the emotions that brings up. but especially the joy that that means. Celebrations of graduations and vacations, birthdays. God, we're so thankful for these little things that bring us joy each and every day. We thank you for the way you're watching over us as a church, as a community, as we seek to be the church here in our growing community. We ask that you would be with Nancy as she moves to Florida to find a new community. So thankful for the way things have been falling into place. Again, we see your hand. We praise you for the way that you take care of us. God, you called us to be your disciples, to reach out, to live lives that give and offer kindness and grace and love and mercy. And to do those things, we need your help. And so we ask that we would have the strength and courage to not only pray, but also live the prayer that you taught your disciples. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
I can cast all my cares upon you. I trust me. Anytime I don't know what to do. You cast my cares upon you. I cast all my cares upon you. I cast your feet. Anytime that I don't know what to do. I will cast all my cares upon you.
My turn? It's my turn. Yeah. I was having this morning. All right, we have our living water feeder question this morning, and I should have done something mothery, but I didn't. But if you want to share something about your must have a great too, but I want to have you answer this question as you walk around, get a refill on your coffee, stretch your legs a little bit, try to figure out why your homework.
Swing back instead of forward.
It's kind of persnickety. What's the most valuable thing you've ever lost? And that could be a person, that could be a thing, who knows what it might be. What's the most valuable thing you've ever lost? Go through life, we all lose different things. What's the most valuable thing you've ever lost? So share that as you stretch it out a little bit and walk around and get some coffee, and then we'll jump into the sermon. How are
All right, I'm going to use this mic to get you guys back to your seats so we can get on with the service. Although I was looking at the clock in the back, which isn't right, and I thought I had 10 minutes, and I was like, oh, wow, that's not quite enough. Come on back. I think I am. Whoa. And can you turn the green mic down a little bit? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I am going to use a mic this morning just so everyone can hear me, but we are continuing on with our sermon series. My teacher, I don't know that my mom voice is what I really need. That's what I really need. Teacher voice, mom voice. I think we're good. We got it. All right, we're continuing on with our sermon series about how to know a person, the Be the Church edition. And if you'll recall, this is based on a book by David Brooks. And David Brooks was here in the community not too long ago talking about his book. And if you have a chance, read it or listen to it. I did return the audio version to the library last week. So if you want to listen to it, that it is available for you at the library. And if you recall, it's not really a church book. It's not really marketed as something that is like a church book, but because we know that being the church is all about relationships, relationship books are church books. And so that's why we're kind of looking at this. And I just kind of read the book and then I took out what he had to say and I applied it to the scriptures. And so that's what we did last week. And we talked last week about illuminators versus diminishers. And David Brooks talks a lot about how we need to be more like illuminators, people that bring light and life into the people that we live around and live with and see on a daily basis, rather than diminishers who put out the light in other people's lives. A lot of times the world kind of does that to people where they kind of snuff out people's lights. But Jesus was the greatest illuminator of all time, right? We saw just one example last week in the passage about the woman who was accused of adultery and how they were going to stone her, and how Jesus kind of illuminated her life rather than diminishing her and reducing her to the mistakes that she had made, like the Pharisees were doing to her. Jesus lifted her up. And so Jesus was the greatest illuminator, actually called himself the light of the world, which I think is very interesting in the context of this book. But then Jesus has the audacity to go on and say that you are the light of the world as well. So that means that we are called to be illuminators and that we need to work very hard to try to bring light into other people's lives as well. And so that was the first section of the book. The book is divided up into 3 sections. And so now we're going on to section 2 today. And the section 2 is all about seeing others in their struggles. That we know that there are people, all of us as humans, we all struggle, don't we? Sometimes we come in here with a whole list of awesome things when we share our joys and concerns. And other days we come in and we've got a really long list of struggles. We all have struggles. And, you know, sometimes we have a tendency as humans to view people a little bit differently and maybe not see people as clearly when they're struggling. And so David Brooks, when he introduces this section of his book, he talks about a time in his life when one of his very best friends, a friend that he had met when he was a little kid at summer camp, and they had built their lives and known each other most of their lives, and their once they went off and got married and had families, their families interacted with each other, and they were the best friends. But his friend was struggling with depression. And David Brooks talks about how he failed to show up in his friend's life, that he was there, but he wasn't really plugged into him. He didn't really see him and illuminate him in his struggles. And unfortunately, his friend committed suicide. And after kind of looking through all of that, Brooks wrote this next section of the book to talk about how we need to show up better in the lives of our friends who are struggling. And so that reminded me of a scripture passage that we didn't read earlier. I'm going to get to that one a little bit later. But you remember the story about Jesus in the garden. At the very end of his ministry, after he's up in the upper room with the disciples and they go into the garden. And it's found in 3 of our gospels, and there's a lot of different details in each of them. Some of them highlight some things and some of them highlight other things. And the story is a little bit different in each of the tellings of it. But here's what we do know. What's very clear in all of these accounts is that Jesus is described as sad and anxious and in despair, in anguish and in weak and being very weak. If you remember, he knows he's about to be betrayed. He knows what's coming next, and he's struggling. Even Jesus struggled. And we see this list, and we don't really think about Jesus like this, but isn't this a list that at one time or the other, we've all gone through these things? And Jesus, it said that he was so upset. And you've read this probably in one of the accounts where it says that he bled. He was so anxious. And that's a real medical thing, that you can get so stressed out that you can actually sweat blood. And it's all has to do with how anxious you are. And it's crazy. I actually saw it happen one time, which is kind of nutty and weird. I used to take kids to New Orleans every year for a mission trip. And I had a student that was a real type A kind of student. And he was so stressed out about making sure he did everything right. The kids, my youth would lead Bible study and Bible school for little kids. And he just wanted to get it all right. He wanted to do it just perfectly. And he had spent months just stressing out about what it would all be like. And he did a great job, by the way. Still one of my favorite students of all time. But we were in New Orleans. We had been through 4 days of just work. And he had been an awesome leader with the kids we were working with, as well as with the youth group as a whole. And we always went on Thursday night, just before the trip was over. We would go to a place called Rockin' Bowl in New Orleans. If you've never been there, you need to go. It's a bowling alley / dance hall, and it's fantastic. And I would always take my youth there because it was just such a great release after working so hard to go and to bowl and to eat good food and then dance. There was always a Zydeco band on Thursday night. I'm telling you, if you ever go to New Orleans on Thursday night, go to Rockin' Bowl. And the kids would just dance, and you could just see all of the anxiousness come off of them. And so my student, Ryan, who was so stressed out all week long, he had it's hot, it's New Orleans. And so he had taken off one of his T-shirts, and he just had like a white undershirt. And I noticed that there was blood on the back of it. And I was like, what in the world is there? And I'm like looking at his back, and there was nothing wrong. And my nurse that always traveled with us on this trip, she was like, yeah, I think all of the stress was just released from his body. And so this is a medical thing. You can get so stressed out and so anxious and so in despair that you can actually sweat blood. And so we know that Jesus was in this condition. And so he goes to the garden to pray, right? He is so upset and so anxious, and he goes to the garden to pray. And what does he do? Well, he asked his besties to come with him. He asked the disciples to come with him, but then there were 3 of the disciples, Peter, James, and John, who were really his inner circle, his really close friends. And he said, I want you to come with me. I want you to stand close to me because I'm going through some things. I'm really stressed out. I just need you to be there and be present with me. Even Jesus needed people when he was struggling. And you may know the story already. His friends let him down and fell asleep. He asked them, stay with me and pray. And what happened? Well, they fell asleep on him. And, depending on which version of the story you read, it happened more than once. He woke them up and said, hey, I need you to be with me. I need you to pray with me. I am struggling. But once again, they fell asleep. And it was a complete epic fail. And it reminds me of the emotions that the author, David Brooks, talks about in how he felt about letting down his friend. He wasn't there for him. Now, it wasn't that he had ignored him. He'd spent time with him, but he wasn't just present with him. He got into this mode where he felt like it was his job to cheer up his friend and to do all these fun things so that his friend would enjoy life. But really what his friend needed, just like what Jesus needed, was somebody to be present with him in his struggles and just be there. Just be there. But the disciples, they failed. But you know what? Thankfully, Luke says that an angel showed up and was there and was present and saved the day by strengthening Jesus. And aren't we glad? Because Jesus then went through with the cross. And so that was all really good stuff. But an angel showed up just to be present with Jesus and really save the day. Now, I want to contrast that story to a parable that Jesus told in Luke chapter 15, 1-7, that Nancy read to us earlier. And it's a really familiar parable, but you may not have ever thought about it with this kind of thing in mind. So let's go through it. It's the parable of the lost sheep. Now, I kind of am guessing some of y'all have actually done a little shepherding before. Anyone ever dealt with herds of sheep before in here? Okay, a couple of you have. All right. So you may be even more familiar with this than I am, but sheep are very interesting creatures. They are socially dependent creatures. And they're, one reason might be because they're not smart enough to do things on their own. Is that true? Those of you who have worked with sheep, they're not the most intelligent of the animals out there, right? And they're socially dependent. They lean on each other. They follow each other, sometimes blindly follow each other. They're very socially dependent. They don't do well when they're on their own. That's just the truth about sheep. And so every once in a while, a sheep will get separated from the group. They'll wander away from the group and they'll end up on their own, all by themselves. And when they do that, they display very interesting behavior because this is not their norm. This is not the way they operate best. They don't operate best by themselves. They operate best in community and with a group. And so when they get separated from the group, they do lots of different things. First is they start calling out from the herd. And I've never personally heard this other than maybe on YouTube, but some of you that have dealt with sheep, it's a different kind of cry. When they get separated from the group, it's a different kind of noise that they make, and it shows all sorts of things. And when you hear it, and again, I've watched this on YouTube, but you can hear it, there's anxiety and there's distress and there's fear and there's vulnerability in these cries that the separated sheep will make. Now, it's Mother's Day, and mamas, and I learned very quickly that the difference in your kids' cries. There are different kinds of cries, right, for different kind of things. And some of them, I'm sorry the kids are back in here now because I'm telling secrets now. Some of them you just straight up ignore, don't you? Because sometimes that it's just, something that's like, oh, they're not hurt. And it's amazing. They can be like across the way and, they maybe are crying and you perk up, your ears perk up and you're like, okay, is that a real cry or is that a fake cry? Is that, something like that? And Casey, I will tell a story about you. There was one time we were at a water splash park when we lived in New Mexico. Oh yeah, Casey remembers this. Okay. Okay. So we were at a splash park and I was working on a sermon. So I was sitting in a chair and he was off at the splash park. And, I was kind of watching him, but I wasn't completely had my eyes on him the whole time. And all of a sudden I hear this cry and my eyes light up. I know it's and there's lots of kids making a lot of different noises, but I knew it was Casey. And I knew instantly before I even saw him that something was really, really wrong. And so we just know, don't we, as mamas? And shepherds are the same way with their sheep. They hear this different cry and they know that the sheep is lost, right? So when a sheep gets lost, they'll make this special cry and you can just feel it in your bones, kind of like a mom with their kid, that something is really, really wrong. And so after that, after they make this cry for a while and, they still are not quite sure what to do, they can almost become self-destructive. Some of them will actually hit their heads on things. Kids do that sometimes too, if they're not sure what to do. Sheep will get self-destructed. They might even run off a ledge or something because they just don't know what to do. They're alone and they're hurt. Maybe they've got all this anxiety, all this fear, and they don't know what to do, and they can become self-destructive. But then after a while of kind of running around with a quote unquote chicken, like a chicken with their head cut off, then they become hopeless and they just kind of sit down and accept their fate. And so that's what a lost sheep will do on its own. But here's the interesting thing about the herd, because a lot of times the herd hears these cries, and you might think, okay, when the herd hears one of its own lost and hurt and anxious, and they recognize that cry, then they're going to go and help. No, they don't. Because again, they are social. They're so social, but they're only social with the herd. And so when they hear this cry, they close their ranks and they start to get focused on each other and don't pay attention really to the one that is lost. And so that's the context of this story that Jesus was telling. And so Jesus talks about a good shepherd will go out and find that distressed sheep, leave the others. They're going to take care of each other within the herd. And Jesus goes out and finds this distressed sheep that is all on its own. And I think it's just so interesting that Jesus does not avoid the hurting. As humans, sometimes we do, because sometimes it's really hard to be around someone who's hurting and we don't know what to do. And again, we kind of go into this mode, and this really showed up when I had to do my, you guys do realize that when you become a pastor, you have to take all sorts of tests, and they want to measure your mental capacity and your emotional capacity and all that kind of stuff. And this showed up on my test, and you're like, how on earth did you figure that out from the questions that you asked me about? But it showed up that sometimes I have a hard time going and visiting people that are sick because I want to fix them and I can't fix them. And so sometimes it's hard for me. I had to learn how to not try to fix people and just be with people. And Jesus doesn't avoid the hurting. Jesus goes out and seeks those who are struggling. Jesus goes out and finds the lost. And that's all of us at one time or another. But interesting little story. I told you a lot about sheep this morning, but what does it all have to do with me? Well, there's a few perspectives on this story, especially when you put it with this book and things like that. A few perspectives. There's a perspective of the lost sheep, right? Which probably all of us have felt that way at one time or another, where we feel alone, we feel stressed, we feel anxious, maybe we're hurt, maybe we get to the point where we just, kind of shrivel up into a ball. We maybe have self-destructive tendencies, kind of like the lost sheep at times. I think we've all been in that position. And since we're talking about being the church, well, being the church together is trusting our community enough to let them see our struggles, because as church people, we don't always show it. A lot of times as church people, we put on the happy face when we show up here, right? And we don't necessarily let people know where we're struggling. But if we're going to live in community, we have to be willing to let people know. We need to be willing to let out that cry that says, help, I need you. Help. That's the greatest thing about being in community together as a church, is that we have the opportunity to do that for each other. To know that when we cry out, that there's going to be somebody there beside us. And so that's kind of the perspective of the lost sheep. But I want to talk about the perspective of the herd as well, because that's all of us, right? That's all of us. And so being the church is the ability to break away from the herd and stand with the struggling. Because sometimes as a church, we tend to push out the folks that are hurting, especially if they're struggling with some of those things that we don't think are very churchy, you know? And it's like, oh, I can't be around that person because they're struggling with this or struggling with this, and I don't want to be associated with that. And being the church sometimes is breaking away from this safe place and going and standing with those who are struggling, those who are on the outside. And that doesn't mean fixing anyone. That doesn't mean that we have to fix anybody. We just need to go and be with people in the midst of their struggles, acknowledging their struggle, yes, but just being there sometimes. And you might know this if you've ever gone through any kind of depression. Sometimes you just need to know that somebody's there. So it doesn't mean that we have to go and fix anyone, but breaking away. This is one of the things that I love about Pope Francis. You know, we've got a really good Pope right now. Not that the Pope has any authority over us, but man, for the first time in my lifetime, I'm listening to the Pope going, yes, yes, maybe I need to become a Catholic because that all sounds really good. But Pope Francis has made a big deal about this idea of the ministry of accompaniment, which mainly just means, and I read a whole lot about it over these last couple of weeks, and this is a new thing for the faith of Catholicism, is saying, once again, number one, get out there and be with the people who are different than you that are struggling, but you don't have to fix them, just be there. The ministry of accompaniment, just walking with people. I love it. And as the herd, that's what we're called to do. That's what Jesus did. That is what we are called to do. And so, church, there's your challenge. Number one, if you're a lost sheep, make some noise and let somebody know, not that they can come and fix you, but so that they can walk with you. And herd, as the herd, be ready to hear those cries and just to be with people, seeing them in their struggles so that you can be a light in their life. May it be so. And we're going to sing a closing song about serving one another and being there for each other. So Renee and Gail are going to come and lead us in the servant song. And yeah, jump up there as well. You bet.
Actually, it's fun for me too, the sermon and the singing, because I've always cried.
Brother, sister, let me serve you. Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. I will hold the Christ light for you in the night time of your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping, when you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we've seen this journey through.
Yeah, be seated. I'm gonna invite the kids to say a little thing for people for you.
Well, by now you all know Nancy's leaving us. But I just wanted to say a few things because I was thinking, oh well. So when I was thinking about Nancy's time here at Living Water, she's been here 7 years. Of the 7 years, 5 years she has served as our admin leader. Of those 5 years, I think she's worked with 4 different pastors. Exactly. She's also gotten us through COVID. I mean, when I think about that, I mean, working with Allison at the time to get us through COVID, that was a pretty big deal. And then when Zach agreed to come out during the year, making that all work. And I think she would say her biggest project was the repainting of the church and the parsonage and coordinating all of that. I mean, when I think of everything that Nancy has done for Living Waters, I mean, I was just like, oh, thinking about that. It's an awful lot. Nancy, we're going to miss you. I mean, we're going to miss this teacher voice that's going to say, okay, I've been a teacher now. You're going to listen to me. So I just wanted to say we're going to miss you. We wish you tons of good times, and I hope you find the perfect church home in Florida. I mean, yeah, we just wish you a lot of good luck, and going to miss you. And come on up. We have a little gift here for you. Yeah, I think she can have that humidity though.
Yeah. Good idea.
Well, I think my daughter-in-law,
So, Nancy, this is for you. I know you've sold everything, but we hope that you can find a little room in a box that can carry that with you so that you'll always remember the great state of Montana.
Here it is. The great state of Montana. Things
Memories
in
on-
Montana box. All the different places and people and things. There's dinosaurs in here. And there's all kinds of birds I don't recognize. You gotta remember, when I moved here, I was always called, I have 2 sisters. And I was always the urban sister because I never lived any place that wasn't the suburb of a city. And I'm coming here and I'm going like, where's another Target? One Kohl's? Where's the other one? And so it was quite an adjustment to go from that to that, and then kind of going back to another big city. So I'm going to have to work on learning what all these things are that I don't know. And after 7 years, I still don't know.
So,
But thank you all for the gift. Thank you all for the kind words and the sentiments. I'm going to miss everybody. I made many, many good friends while I was here. I'm going to miss my family, especially. But thank you all for making my time here as easy as it was and for cooperating as best we could under difficult circumstances. And I will miss all of you, and I hope to come back. The new library is going to be done in the fall, and I'm going to try to sneak back up here one time to see what that looks like, because it was an integral part of what I did while I was here. And then I'll come over here and spend Sunday with you when I get back up here hopefully in the fall. So thank you for all the help that you gave me. Thank you for all the work that we've done together to make the church be what it is. And I only wish you happiness and good luck with the new families that are all going to be coming in. That I hope it will, make everybody here have a new membership and have new families, a new church family. So thank you again very much.
and we do have a nice coffee hour. There's coffee hour afterwards, so please stay and enjoy some cake and some goodies.
Thanks so much. And watch yourself because we are looking to fill our position. So everybody's now gonna avoid me probably for a while. I mean, I lost sheep. All right, here you go. There you go, and illuminate the lives of people around opportunity to see the people who are struggling and come alongside them in the ministry of continence. And may you, if you're struggling, reach out. Let us know so we can all be in unity in the church together. Go now. Amen.
Amen.